I was just relaxing in my apartment when my phone lit up with my mom's contact photo. She never calls after 9 p.m. It's practically sacred for her to be in bed by 10, so my stomach immediately dropped. I answered with my heart racing, already bracing for the worst, someone in the hospital, or something even worse. Her voice came through in this strange, cautious tone I'd never heard from her before. Hi, sweetie. Are you alone right now? I told her yes. My roommate was out of town visiting her boyfriend, and she took a long breath and said, Good. I need to tell you something important, and I need you to just listen until I'm done. I swear my entire life flashed before my eyes. Was she sick? Was dad? Were they getting divorced after 35 years together? My parents have always been the rock-solid couple everyone compares themselves to. I sat down with my fuzzy blanket and curled up on the couch like I was 8 again, waiting to get scolded for something I didn't even remember doing. Then she started talking about Elizabeth. For context, Elizabeth is my mom's sister, someone I've literally never met. She lives across the country, and they had some major falling out long before I was born. Growing up, Elizabeth was just this name that popped up once in a while, usually when my mom had a bit too much wine at Christmas and got misty-eyed over old family photos. Dad would always steer the conversation elsewhere, and we just learned not to ask questions. It was clearly a painful subject. Mom explained that she and Elizabeth were incredibly close growing up. They shared a room, did each other's hair, passed notes about crushes, the whole sisterhood package. But when they were in their early 20s, Elizabeth started dating a guy named Tom. According to Mom, Tom was bad news, though she didn't go into detail, just gave me some vague, ominous warning. From that point on, Elizabeth started pulling away. She stopped calling, skipped family events, and when she did show up, it usually ended in shouting matches with my grandparents. Eventually, things got so tense that Elizabeth just vanished for 6 months. No phone calls, no letters. This was the 80s, so no texting, no social media, just total silence. As my mom was explaining all this, I kept thinking, why is she telling me this now, in the middle of the night? But I could tell she was building up to something big. Then she told me that one night, out of nowhere, Elizabeth showed up at her apartment, sobbing, and very pregnant. Tom had taken off, and Elizabeth was desperate. Mom took her in, helped her through the pregnancy, and was even in the delivery room when the baby girl was born. I was still confused as hell about why I was hearing this now, but I didn't interrupt. Mom said Elizabeth really struggled after the baby arrived. She was barely functioning, couldn't even get out of bed to feed her daughter. My mom stepped in, doing everything she could, working full-time while caring for the baby and trying to support Elizabeth emotionally. Then, about 3 months in, Elizabeth suddenly seemed like a different person. She told my mom she'd landed a great job in California and wanted to take the baby and start over. Mom was skeptical but relieved, and she helped her pack, bought her a bus ticket, and gave her whatever money she could scrape together. But the night before Elizabeth was supposed to leave, Mom came home from work to find a note on the kitchen table. It simply said, "I can't do this. She deserves better. Please forgive me someday." I remember being completely frozen on the couch at that point. I could feel where this was headed, but my brain refused to connect the dots. My mom said she panicked and called the police. But technically, Elizabeth hadn't committed a crime. She had just left her own child. Since my mom was listed as the baby's next of kin, she became the legal guardian while authorities tried to track Elizabeth down. Weeks turned into months, and in that time, my mom fell in love with the little girl. When Elizabeth was eventually found in California, she signed over her parental rights. My mom legally adopted the baby and made a promise to herself that she wouldn't reveal the truth until she felt the time was right. I was literally shaking. I dropped my phone and had to fumble around to pick it up because I suddenly knew what she was about to say, but I couldn't let myself believe it. "Sweetie," she whispered, "that baby was you. Elizabeth is your biological mother. I'm actually your aunt." I couldn't speak. I couldn't even breathe. The woman I'd called mom my entire life was actually my aunt, and the mysterious sister I had heard about in whispers over the years, she was my biological mother, and she had abandoned me. I honestly didn't even know what to call her now. My mom started crying, saying she had wanted to tell me for years, but could never find the right moment. She said Elizabeth had reached out last week, asking if they could reconnect, and she felt I deserved to know the truth before that happened. I hung up without saying goodbye. I still haven't spoken to Elizabeth. So, first update. Yeah, hey again. I wish I could say things have calmed down, but honestly, they've gotten more chaotic. I don't even know where to begin. I didn't do anything dramatic after the call. I just sat on my couch in the dark, wrapped up in my gross old hoodie, doom scrolling through Instagram reels and trying not to think about it. Spoiler alert, that didn't work. I think I slept maybe 2 hours that night. Woke up with that heavy feeling in your chest, like when you know you're going to cry again soon. Still, I got up and moved through the motions. Made coffee, stared at the fridge like it might explain something to me. At some point, I texted my roommate Megan, just a quick, "Hope you're having fun. Don't worry about the cat, all good here." which, LMAO, was a complete lie. The next 3 days were basically autopilot mode. I went out, did my usual routine, but I couldn't stop replaying that phone call in my head. I'd be in line at the store and suddenly hear her shaky voice in my mind, and my chest would clench. I kept thinking I should call her, or at least send a text, but every time I picked up my phone, I just got angry. And not just mildly irritated, like furious, which isn't typical for me. I'm usually the talk it out type, but this felt different. I kept asking myself, why now? Why drop this on me at all? Why not just keep it buried if you've hidden it this long? And then the doubt spiraled into, what else has she lied about? So yeah, that was a fun ride. Love that for me. Megan came back from her boyfriend's place on Sunday night, I think. The second she walked in, she looked at me and said, "You okay?" And of course, I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." Because what else do you even say? Apparently, I wasn't hiding it well. She kept glancing at me while she unpacked, then finally dropped onto the couch next to me, still in her boots, and said, "Okay, Spill, you look like you just found out your cat is actually a lizard or something." She's not exactly subtle. I just stared at her and thought, why now? But I just blurted it all out, not even trying to make it make sense. Just rambling about how my mom isn't really my mom, how she's actually my aunt, and how Elizabeth is my biological mom, and I'm basically this hidden family secret. Megan just sat there, letting me talk. She didn't jump in with instant advice or cliches, which I genuinely appreciated. She just asked the kinds of questions you'd ask if your best friend dropped a bombshell like that. How do you know it's true? Are you going to meet Elizabeth? Do you even want to? Did your mom ever say anything else weird? Then she asked if I wanted her to stay home for a few days, which was sweet of her, but I told her no. I didn't want her putting her life on hold for me. I just wanted everything to either rewind or fast forward, anything but being stuck in this moment. By Monday morning, I finally cracked and texted my mom. Well, I still don't know if I should call her mom or aunt or what. It's also confusing, and I just said, "We need to talk." She replied right away, like she'd been staring at her phone, waiting. She asked if I could come by after dinner. I almost said no, but I knew if I didn't get answers soon, I'd spiral even harder. So I agreed. The rest of the day was a complete blur. I went through the motions, tried to focus, but every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. I kept rehearsing the conversation in my head, obsessing over what I'd say and what I needed to ask. When I pulled up to the house, I just sat in my car for 5 minutes, staring at the front door, wondering if I'd feel something different. I didn't, not really. But the house felt smaller somehow, like everything inside had been part of a set, and now I knew it was all fake. She opened the door and instantly started fussing, asking if I wanted tea, if I'd eaten, trying to play normal. I cut her off and said, "Can we just sit?" I could tell she was nervous. Her hands were shaking a little when she poured herself a glass of water, and she kept glancing at me like I might explode at any second. I started with the obvious. "Why now? Why not never?" She looked exhausted, like she'd aged 10 years in a week. She said she'd wanted to tell me for a long time, but every time she tried, fear got in the way. She was scared I'd hate her, or that I'd leave, so she kept putting it off. But when Elizabeth reached out, she panicked. She was afraid that if I heard the truth from anyone else, it would be worse. Which, maybe that's true, but it still hurt. I kept pressing for details. I wanted to understand. What was so bad about Tom? Why did Elizabeth leave me? Was she on drugs or something? And my mom, because for now, I'm still going to call her that, because it's what feels right. Paused before answering. She said Tom was the kind of guy who isolates people. He convinced Elizabeth that their parents didn't love her, that no one cared about her, that she didn't belong. He made her feel like he was the only one who truly saw her. My mom tried to warn her, but it only pushed Elizabeth further away. Eventually, their parents just gave up trying. Then Elizabeth got pregnant, Tom disappeared, and she completely unraveled. It wasn't drugs, it was depression. Deep, dark, untreated depression. And no one really knew how to help her. This was back when no one talked about mental health, when silence was the default. Those were her words, not mine. But what hit me the hardest was when she said softly, almost like she didn't want to admit it, that Elizabeth had always been jealous of her. She told me about the little things, how Elizabeth would copy her clothes, her handwriting, even how she styled her hair. Their mom, my grandmother, I guess, would constantly compare them. She'd say things like, "Why can't you be more like your perfect big sister?" So when my mom took me in, Elizabeth didn't see it as rescue. She saw it as another loss, another failure, another way her sister had won by default. So yeah, apparently my entire existence was like the final round in their lifelong sister rivalry. That realization made me so angry I couldn't even find the words to respond. I asked her if she had ever considered telling me the truth when I was a kid, and she just stared down at her hands and whispered, "So many times." But every time, she chickened out. That was when I finally lost it. Not yelling, but definitely not calm. I told her it felt like my whole life had been a lie, like I was just some side character in their drama. I said, "Do you even understand how messed up this is? You decided everything for me, without asking. Now I don't even know who I am." She started crying again, but I didn't move. I just sat there, numb. After a few minutes, she wiped her face and said Elizabeth wanted to meet me. Apparently, Elizabeth had emailed her, asking if she could reach out. Instead of reading it, my mom just forwarded the message to me, saying it felt like something I should get directly from her. I opened my email, and there it was. Subject line, just for you. I didn't open it. I stared at the screen for a minute, then flipped my phone over, face down. I asked Mom what she wanted me to do, and she said she honestly didn't know. She promised to support whatever I decided, but said she hoped I'd at least read the letter, because Elizabeth had been carrying the guilt for years. Which, maybe. But honestly, that felt like her problem, not mine. I left not long after. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back, and her arms just fell to her sides. I could tell I hurt her, but I was hurt too, so much more than I could even explain. When I got home, Megan was in the kitchen. She didn't ask anything. She just handed me a bowl of food, and that's exactly why I love her. We ate in silence, scrolling through our phones, and for a few moments, it almost felt like life was normal again. The next morning, I woke up to 6 texts from my mom, just checking in, asking if I was okay, saying she loved me. I ignored them and spent the entire day walking aimlessly around the park, earbuds in, cycling through random playlists, trying to avoid my own thoughts. At one point, I saw a mom walking with her little girl, and I nearly laughed because it felt surreal. Like, how do people just keep living like nothing's happened? Megan kept gently asking if I'd read the email. I kept saying no. But 3 days later, I gave in. She was out, I poured a giant mug of tea, sat on the floor with my laptop, and opened it. The letter was long, clumsy, emotional in a messy, scattered way. Elizabeth wrote about how sorry she was, how she wished things had gone differently, how she truly believed giving me up was the best choice at the time. She talked about how scared she was of becoming a mom, how she sometimes watched my mom raise me from afar, which, not gonna lie, made my skin crawl a bit. Like, what does that mean? Was she creeping around? Or just checking in with family from a distance? She said she's in therapy now, that she's spent years rebuilding her life, and that she wants to meet me if I'm willing, but she'll understand if I'm not. Here's the part that really got under my skin, though. She kept saying, "I hope you can forgive me," but she never explained what she wanted forgiveness for. She talked about being scared, about Tom being manipulative, about feeling overwhelmed, but never gave me a real specific reason. No, I left because, just vague emotional language. And then she ended the letter with, "I love you in my own way." What does that even mean? Your own way? Like, distant? Quiet? Convenient? I don't know. I told Megan everything. She listened and nodded, then just said, "Yeah, that's a lot." She asked if I wanted to write back. And honestly, I didn't know. Part of me wanted to send back a full-on essay about how Elizabeth didn't get to just drop into my life, now that I'm grown, and expect me to be grateful. Another part of me seriously considered blocking her and never looking back. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed to meet her. Not for her, for me. I needed answers. I needed to see her face, hear her voice, ask all the questions that no one else could answer. So I sent a short reply. "I got your letter. I have questions. I'll meet you, but I'm not promising anything." She responded within an hour, which honestly threw me off. I hadn't expected her to be so ready. She suggested a coffee shop downtown, middle of the day, public, neutral ground. I agreed, but told her I wasn't coming alone. Megan offered to come, just to sit nearby and keep an eye on things, and I said yes. When I told my mom I was planning to meet Elizabeth, she kind of freaked, not yelling, but clearly shaken. She kept asking, "Are you sure? You don't have to do this. She's not who you think she is." Then she launched into how Elizabeth always centers herself, how she distorts the truth, how she's still unstable. And I snapped. I told her I'm not a kid anymore. I can handle myself. That I need to do this for me, not for anyone else. She went quiet after that, then said, "Just promise you'll be careful." I said I would, but I could tell she didn't believe me. Now I don't even know what to think. My phone's blowing up like I'm walking into a war zone. Maybe I am, but I can't just live my whole life with this giant hole inside me, wondering what could have been. Megan keeps saying she's proud of me for facing it head on, and I appreciate it, but mostly I just feel exhausted, like permanently exhausted. The meeting is tomorrow. I have no idea what I'll say. I don't know what Elizabeth looks like now, or if I'll even recognize anything of myself in her. I keep thinking about all the family photos where she was missing, all the holidays where there was always one empty chair, and now I'm about to meet the person who was supposed to sit there. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I'll update after the meeting. For now, just wish me luck, I guess. And if you've ever been through something even remotely like this, I'd love to know how you handled it, because honestly, I feel like I'm winging it while everyone else got a script I never saw. Second update. Okay, I promised I'd share how it went. So here I am, sitting at 2 a.m., eating dry cereal out of a coffee mug because I can't sleep, and my brain feels like a broken washing machine stuck on spin cycle. I guess this is what y'all came for, right? Not gonna lie, I'm still processing. Part of me wishes I could just flip a switch and shut it all off. But nope, my mind keeps jumping from moment to moment. What people said, what I should have said. You know the drill. Anyway, here's the story. And wow, it got even messier than I was bracing for. The meeting? At the last minute, I decided to go alone after all. I'm not sure why. Maybe I needed to prove to myself that I could handle it. But I'm not going to pretend I was calm. I nearly bailed at least 4 times. I spent the whole morning pacing, changing outfits, putting on makeup, wiping it off, putting it back on again. I kept staring in the mirror, asking myself, do I look like her? Would I even recognize her if she walked past me on the street? Megan was an angel through all of it. She let me vent, let me borrow her noise-canceling headphones so I could drown out the chaos in my head with music. She made me eat a banana so I wouldn't get hangry mid-confrontation. And she made me promise to text her if I needed an excuse to bail. She even offered to fake a plumbing emergency. Honestly, roommate of the year. I took an Uber to the coffee shop. There was no way I was dealing with parking, or worse, accidentally bumping into someone I knew. I showed up 20 minutes early because I had this ridiculous idea that if I got the good seat, maybe I'd feel more in control. Instead, I just sat there sipping the world's most disappointing iced coffee, mindlessly scrolling Instagram without actually taking in a single post. Every time the door opened, I looked up, heart pounding, then went back to pretending to check my notifications. There was a guy at the next table watching soccer highlights on his laptop, and a girl in a giant scarf who kept glancing at me like she thought I was waiting on a bad Tinder date. Elizabeth was exactly 2 minutes late. I saw her the second she walked in. She looked like me, older obviously, but there was this anxious energy about her, like she was trying to shrink herself. She paused by the door, scanning the room, then saw me and gave this hesitant half smile. I gave a small wave, because what else do you do? And she came over, clutching her bag like someone might snatch it away. First impression, she was taller than I expected, hair darker than mine, her features a little softer, jeans and a sweater, simple, but her eyes, same shape as mine, and she had this faint frown line I've seen on my own face in the mirror. We just stared at each other for a second. She sat down, and we did the awkward, obligatory, "Hi, nice to meet you, how are you?" Except, what are you supposed to say to someone who gave you away and then disappeared for nearly 30 years? She told me I looked so much like her at my age, which, not gonna lie, stung in a way I wasn't ready for. I just nodded and said thanks. Then silence. We both pretended to study the menu, even though neither of us was ordering anything else. I could tell she was nervous. She kept fiddling with her sleeves and picking at her nails. Honestly, I just wanted her to get to the point. But she kept making small talk. How's work? Do you like living here? Is your roommate nice? I gave her short answers, flat tone, just enough to acknowledge the question, nothing more. I wanted her to feel how strange this was. You don't get to vanish and then waltz in like we're old friends catching up after a semester abroad. After about 10 minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I just blurted, "So why did you leave?" She flinched, like I'd hit her, but I didn't care. I was done being polite. She started slow, saying she'd been overwhelmed, young, alone, scared. I cut her off. "But you had my mom. You had family." She started tearing up, said it wasn't that simple, that she felt like a burden, like everyone saw her differently after Tom left. She said my grandparents constantly compared her to my mom, made her feel like the problem, like she couldn't do anything right. Said she was drowning. I asked if she ever thought about coming back. She said she did, all the time. That she'd call but hang up before anyone could answer. That she kept tabs on me from afar, heard about my birthdays, holidays, but she didn't want to ruin anything. I told her that's not how it works. You don't get to abandon someone and then act like you did it for their own good. You didn't even try, I said. She cried, just sitting there in public, dabbing at her face with a napkin. I didn't comfort her. It didn't feel right. We went back and forth for a while. She kept saying she was sorry, that she wished she could take it all back, that she's been in therapy, that she's a different person now. I told her that's great, for her, but it doesn't fix anything for me. I told her what it felt like growing up with this invisible hole, like I was always a few steps removed from my own life, not knowing why. She said she thought about that constantly, said she had nightmares about me hating her, about me never wanting to see her, and I told her, maybe that's just the reality. At one point, she reached across the table like she wanted to touch my hand. I pulled back. I wasn't ready. I asked her what she really wanted from me. Did she want to play mom now? Was she looking for forgiveness? Closure? Did she just want to soothe her own conscience and move on? She said she didn't know. She just wanted to know me, even just once. That's when it got even messier. My phone started blowing up, buzzing nonstop. I glanced at the screen. Texts from my mom. A missed call from my grandma. I ignored them. Then Megan texted, "You good?" And that's when I realized I'd been sitting there with Elizabeth for almost an hour. I told Elizabeth I needed a break, and she nodded, said she understood. I stepped outside and called Megan, told her I was okay, but needed another 30 minutes. She said my mom had called the apartment looking for me and was totally freaking out. I guess I should have told her where I was going, but honestly, I didn't want to deal with her trying to talk me out of it. When I went back inside, Elizabeth was still there, staring down at her phone. I told her about the messages, and she asked if I wanted to talk about my mom. I told her I didn't even know what to call either of them anymore. It's like I have two moms and no moms at the same time. She gave a sad smile and said, "I get that. I always felt like a daughter, but not really a daughter too." Then she started telling me more about Tom, how controlling he was, how he'd constantly tear her down, tell her she was worthless, go through her phone, her stuff, make her feel like trash just for talking to her sister. She said by the time I was born, she didn't trust anyone, not even herself. Leaving me, she said, wasn't about not loving me. It was about believing I'd be safer with someone stronger. I asked, "So you just gave up?" She nodded. For a second, I thought she was going to snap back, but she just looked tired, worn down to the bone. Then she told me something I didn't expect. She said she resented my mom for stepping in. Not because she didn't want me to be cared for, but because it felt like she'd lost again. Once when Tom left, and again when she saw how happy I was with my mom. She said she'd see pictures, apparently Grandma sent them sometimes, and feel relief that I was okay, but also this burning jealousy that she hadn't been the one raising me. I asked her, "So were you mad at me? Did you hate me for being happy?" She said no, she never hated me. But sometimes she hated herself for not being strong enough, not being what I needed. At that point, I didn't know what I felt. Sympathy, anger, grief, some tangled knot of all of it. We both sat there quiet, staring into our cups. The coffee shop was getting busier, people glancing our way, probably wondering what our deal was. I didn't care. And then, because of course, my phone rang again. This time, it was Grandma. I picked up just to stop the buzzing. She immediately started asking if I was okay, if I needed a ride, if I was safe. I told her I was fine, that I was with Elizabeth. She sighed and said, "You know how your mother gets." I said, "Which one?" She went silent for a second. Then just said, "Come to dinner tonight if you can. We all need to talk." I told her I'd think about it, then hung up and told Elizabeth what she said. She looked nervous, said she hadn't seen her parents since the day she signed the papers. Then she asked, "Do you want me to come?" I said I didn't know, but maybe it was time for everyone to stop hiding. The last half hour passed in a blur. We drifted into small talk. Favorite movies, music, foods we hated. She laughed when I said I still can't eat Brussels sprouts and joked that it must be genetic. I could see little reflections of myself in her, and honestly, that was the strangest part of all. When it was finally time to leave, we just kind of sat there like neither of us wanted to be the first to go. She eventually stood up, slung her bag over her shoulder, and said, "I hope you'll call me again." I said, "I'll think about it." She nodded, then just walked out. No hug, no more tears, just gone. When I got home, my mom was waiting in the kitchen. I could tell she'd been crying. Her eyes were red, her nose puffy. She just looked at me like she was waiting for some kind of verdict. I put my bag down and sat across from her at the table. She asked if I was okay. If Elizabeth had said anything strange, I told her everything. I didn't sugarcoat it. I shared all of it, even the uncomfortable stuff. She got defensive right away, saying Elizabeth always made herself the victim, always blamed everyone else for her mistakes. I told her it felt like everyone in this family had been pointing fingers at everyone else for years, and maybe that's why I was kept in the dark for so long. She started to push back, but I held up my hand. "I'm not picking sides," I said. "I just want the truth." She went quiet for a second, then said the truth was that she had done her best, that she loved me, that if she had to go back and do it all again, she'd still choose me. I told her I believed that, but I also told her I was still angry. Megan came home in the middle of all this. She took one look at the scene and silently retreated to her room, headphones on. Because yeah, who wants to walk into that? A few minutes later, she texted me from literally 10 feet away. "Do you want ice cream or to scream into a pillow?" I just replied with the skull emoji. I ended up going to dinner at my grandparents' house because honestly, at that point, I figured I might as well just rip the Band-Aid all the way off. Everyone was there. My mom, Elizabeth, Grandma, Grandpa, even my cousin Riley, who kept making awkward jokes about family reunions, clearly trying to diffuse the tension. The vibe was heavy. Grandma kept trying to keep things normal, passing dishes and talking about the weather, but no one was really eating. Elizabeth barely spoke. My mom kept shooting daggers across the table. Grandpa just stared down at his plate. Eventually, Grandma broke the silence, said we needed to talk, actually talk, not pretend nothing had happened. My mom jumped in immediately, accusing Elizabeth of showing up just to stir things up, saying she gave up her right to be part of this family. Elizabeth fired back, saying she'd been pushed out, that nobody had ever really wanted her around, that she only did what was expected of her, and I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped. This isn't about either of you, I said. It's about me. I'm the one who was lied to for my entire life. I'm the one who's stuck in the middle of all this, not you. They both fell quiet. I'm done being the reason you fight, I continued. I'm exhausted. I'm not picking sides. And if either of you wants to be in my life, you need to figure out your issues without dragging me into them. There was a long silence. No one looked at each other. Then Grandma said she was sorry, that they'd all let me down in different ways. Grandpa just nodded, still not looking up. My mom started crying again. Elizabeth looked away. I left before dessert, just grabbed my bag and walked out. No one stopped me. Now I'm back in my apartment. Megan's asleep. The cat is curled up on my blanket. And I'm sitting here in the quiet, wondering what comes next. I don't feel better, but I do feel clearer. Like I finally said the things I've been carrying for too long. I still don't know if I'll ever fully forgive either of them, or even if I want to. But I do know this. I'm not going to let them keep using me to fight battles that started long before I was even born. So I guess that's the update. The family group chat is blowing up. People are picking sides. Grandma keeps sending love each other memes like she's trying to fix decades of trauma with pixel hearts. And I'm just here, trying to find a clean spoon. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking with me. And if you've got advice, I'll take it. Because honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. Next steps? No clue. But for once, it feels like it's actually up to me. Last update. I keep trying to write this in my notes app, and every time I get halfway through, I feel like I sound like I'm recapping a soap opera. But if you've read my earlier posts, you know I'm not exaggerating. If anything, I've probably left stuff out, because it's too much to process all at once. Anyway, here's what happened after that chaotic dinner, where I basically told my whole family to stop using me as a human shield in their decades-long sibling war. The next morning, I woke up to 4 missed calls from Grandma, a wall of texts from my mom, and a thinking of you, hope you're okay, email from Elizabeth. I ignored all of them, just lay there scrolling through my feed, trying to care about someone's vacation or a cat meme, but my brain was stuck, replaying everything in a loop. Then there was Aunt Tracy. Yes, there's a third sister, the one who lives in Florida and never visits, telling everyone in the family chat to have some grace. Which is rich coming from her, to be honest. Megan came into my room with a mug of coffee and sat on the edge of my bed like she was about to break some bad news. Instead, she nudged me and said, "Your grandma's been calling here too. Are you going to answer?" I told her I didn't want to talk to anyone. She just shrugged and said, "Okay, but at least let people know you're alive." So I finally texted Grandma, "I'm fine, just need space. Love you." She responded instantly with 10 heart emojis and a long message about how family can heal if we try. I flipped my phone face down and stared at the ceiling for like an hour. That whole day was weird. I went for a long walk, bought myself a donut, sat in the park watching 2 kids try to catch a squirrel. And the whole time, I kept expecting someone, my mom, Elizabeth, someone, to show up out of nowhere and beg me to come home. But nobody did. When I got back, Megan was making pasta and playing music, and for a second, it almost felt normal. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I said yes. We sat on the couch eating pasta straight out of the pot with forks because we were too lazy to do dishes. It was the first time in days I didn't feel like I was holding my breath. But then, the next day happened. I woke up to a voicemail from my grandpa, which is wild because he never calls anyone. His voice was scratchy. All he said was, "Call me when you can, we need to talk." It made me feel sick. He sounded tired, like he'd aged 10 years overnight. I waited until the afternoon to call him back, kind of hoping he wouldn't answer. But he did. After a long silence, he said, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." I asked what he meant, and then he just kept apologizing. Said he should have stepped in a long time ago. That none of this was fair, to me, to Elizabeth, or to my mom. He said Grandma was having a hard time, that my mom wasn't sleeping, that Elizabeth had called him crying. I asked, "Are you mad at me?" He said, "No, never, but I'm sad." He told me families are like knots, easy to tie, impossible to untangle. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. I just let him talk. After I hung up, I felt off, guilty, but also frustrated, because somehow I was back to being the emotional middleman, responsible for everyone's feelings again. And then, as if things weren't messy enough, yeah, you guessed it, the family group chat exploded. People actually started fighting. Not passive-aggressive, love you, but stuff. Like, fighting. Grandma trying to play peacemaker with heart emojis and let's all just be kind gifts. My mom accusing Elizabeth of playing the victim. Elizabeth accusing my mom of rewriting history. Tracy popping in once every few hours to drop some cryptic, be the bigger person comment before disappearing again. And me? Just sitting there trying to find a clean spoon. So that's where we are. If you made it this far, thank you, sincerely. I don't know what comes next. I'm not sure if I'm going to reach out again or go quiet for a while, or maybe just exist in the weird in-between space where I have a family but don't quite trust them. But for once, it feels like I get to choose, not them. And that, honestly, might be enough. My mom accusing Elizabeth of manipulating me. Elizabeth insisting she just wanted a chance to explain. Tracy chiming in from Florida with, let's all take a breath. Grandpa dropping a link to some random article about forgiveness, like, okay? At one point, Riley posted a meme of a burning bridge, then left the chat entirely. I let it all scroll by and muted the notifications. But it didn't stop. That night, my mom showed up at my door. She knocked, and when I opened it, she just stood there, clutching her keys so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Megan hovered in the kitchen, pretending to be busy. My mom came in and sat on the couch, didn't even take her coat off. She said she needed to talk, and I said fine, but only if she was honest. She started crying again, which, at this point, just made me feel numb. She said she was scared, that she felt like she was losing me, that she didn't know how to fix it. I told her it wasn't about fixing it, it was about finally facing it. I said I was done being the glue that held everyone together, that I refused to keep being the emotional buffer for all their unresolved crap. She asked if I was planning to see Elizabeth again. I told her I didn't know. She said if I did, she wanted to come with me. I told her that wouldn't happen. That's when she got angry, not shouting, but her voice sharpened, clipped. She said Elizabeth always ruins everything, that she's only reaching out now because she wants something. I asked what that was supposed to mean. She just shook her head and said I didn't understand. That Elizabeth had always been like this, always making things about herself, always needing attention, never satisfied. I told her maybe that's true, but it's not my problem to solve. She stood up and left. I just sat there, staring at the dent in the carpet from where her suitcase always sat when she'd visit. Megan came in, handed me a glass of water, and said, that was a lot. I nodded, and we just sat in silence. Hours later, I got a text from Elizabeth. She said she was sorry for causing so much trouble, that she never meant to blow up my life, that if I didn't want to see her again, she'd respect it. She said she was leaving town in 2 days, but would stay in a hotel just in case I changed my mind. I didn't reply, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I called Grandma, asked how she was. She sighed and said she was tired, but glad I called. She told me she loved me, no matter what, that even if the rest of the family was falling apart, she'd always be here. I asked if I should meet with Elizabeth again. She said only if I wanted to, not for anyone else. The next day, the awkward reached new heights. I went to get groceries and ran into Riley in the parking lot. He gave me a huge hug and apologized for the memes, said he didn't know what else to do, that the family was losing it, Grandma crying, Grandpa not talking, and Tracy sending him recipes like they were going to fix generational trauma. He asked if I was okay. I said, honestly, I didn't know. He said he had my back no matter what I decided. And then we just leaned against my car and talked about random stuff. Movies, stupid news stories, anything but family. When I got home, I had 3 missed calls from my mom. I ignored them. That night, I decided to see Elizabeth. One last time. Not for her. Not for my mom. For me. Because I needed to know if there was anything else. Any final piece left unsaid. I texted Megan, told her where I was going, shared my location. Safety first. I took an Uber to the hotel, this sad little place near the highway, and waited in the lobby until Elizabeth came down. She looked tired, older than before, like all the drama had taken something out of her. We sat in the little lounge area. She asked if I wanted coffee. I shook my head. I have questions, I said, and I want real answers, not I didn't know what to do or I was scared. She nodded. Okay, so I asked, why now? Why not 20 years ago? Why not when I graduated? Or when Grandma got sick? Or literally any other time? She took a long time to answer. She said she'd tried, more than once. But every time, my mom shut her down, told her I wasn't ready, that it would ruin my life, that I was better off not knowing. And she believed her, for a long time. But eventually, she realized my mom wasn't protecting me. She was protecting herself, because she was scared. Scared that if I met Elizabeth, I'd leave her behind. I asked if that was true. Elizabeth said she didn't know, but she thought it was possible. She said my mom was always the fixer, the one who held the family together, and losing me would have felt like failure. I asked her what she wanted from me. She said, not money, not forgiveness, and not a relationship if you don't want one. She said she didn't expect anything. She just wanted to know me, to see who I'd become, to have the chance to say sorry to my face. She admitted it was selfish, but after all these years, she couldn't keep carrying it around. I told her I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive her, but I appreciated her honesty. She nodded, said she'd take whatever I was willing to give. She asked if I wanted to stay in touch. I said maybe, but only on my terms. She agreed, didn't push. We sat there for a while after that, just talking about nothing. My favorite shows, her cat, the best pizza in the city. It was surreal, normal, and not at the same time. When I stood to leave, she stood too. For a moment, I thought she might go in for a hug, but instead, she just placed a hand gently on my shoulder and said, take care of yourself. When I got home, my mom was waiting outside the building. She asked if I'd seen Elizabeth. I said yes. She asked if I planned to see her again. I said I didn't know. Then she started crying, saying she was scared of losing me. I told her she wouldn't. But things had to change. I said I wasn't going to pick sides anymore. I wasn't going to play family referee. I told her I loved her, but I needed boundaries. And if she couldn't respect that, I'd have to take space from her too. She wiped her eyes and said she'd try. I told her that was all I wanted. The next week, things shifted. Grandma invited me over for dinner, just me and Grandpa. She made my favorite casserole, and we sat around talking about nothing in particular. It felt calm. At the end of the night, Grandpa handed me an old photo album. This is your story too, he said. I flipped through pages of birthdays, Halloween costumes, backyard barbecues, and for the first time, it didn't feel like anything was missing. Megan's been a rock through all of this. She bought new bath towels and said it was for fresh start energy. She keeps reminding me to eat something green at least once a week. Honestly, she's the MVP. I don't have some big life lesson to wrap this all up. There's no neat ending where everyone hugs and makes up. My family's still a mess. People are still mad. I'm still figuring it out. But for the first time in a long time, it feels like I get to decide what happens next. I'm not a secret anymore, not someone else's pawn. I'm not here to fix old wounds I didn't cause. I don't know what the future looks like, but I know this. I'm done letting the past define me. So that's it. If you made it this far, thanks for caring about a random internet stranger's family chaos. And if you're going through something even remotely similar, first of all, I'm sorry. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but you're not alone. Sometimes the only thing you can do is keep going. Even when things don't make sense, even when it's still messy. Maybe eventually it gets better, or at least quieter. Anyway, I'm off to eat leftover pasta and ignore the family group chat for at least another 12 hours. Thanks for listening.